Hello everyone, it's Shane Conto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to Wasteland Talks, my weekly talk show where I talk about whatever the hell I want. And this week is another special episode of All Time Greats, as I'm wrapping up my series on John Carpenter on Welcome to the Wasteland, and in reflection it's time to talk about reasons why he is one of the all-time great filmmakers, and perfect guest to have on for this one is the person that got him voted in to go next for Welcome to the Wasteland, my brother Ethan.
How you doing?
So, Ethan here to talk about some of the reasons why he thinks that John Carpenter is great and wanted him to be featured on Welcome to the Wasteland. And let's get things started. So, Ethan, what's your first pick?
Well, every movie that he's done that I've seen has an incredible score to go along with the story. I feel like you can have the movie on in the background and you just hear a certain song or track, whatever, that's going on, and you know what's happening in the movie. Especially during Halloween. Like you don't really even have to watch the movie. And you know who's coming.
Ding, 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 ding.
So, just his ability to be able to bring together the score and like frightening character and or a hero that he has in his movies as well. Always has a really good theme to go along with those that are pretty iconic.
Absolutely. Obviously, you could even just say Halloween, and that's the only score you really need because just there's so many iconic tracks with it, from The Shape Lurks to the Halloween theme, obviously. I just don't think it's right if you make a Halloween movie and it doesn't open with a jack-o'-lantern and John Carpenter's score playing at the beginning of it. And you have Escape from New York and the Pork Chop Express theme from Big Trouble in Little China, and They Live. Doom, 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 doom.
That movie is incredible.
And then even like his later films where they're not his strongest outings, boy do they still have killer scores. Like even just with watching Ghosts of Mars, which was not great, but he had so much intense, amazing, heavy metal guitar centric score with it. The fact that he got Steve Vai, Buckethead, Scott Ian, and other guitarists to lay down the guitar riffs for that score is insane. So the music has just as much to do with his films as anything else because he went to school for music. That's actually what he went to college for. And then it turned out that he went into making films and scored most of his films. Which the strange thing is, he didn't score The Thing. But the score sounds such like a John Carpenter score. But it was actually legendary composer Ennio Morricone. So that was weird. My first reason is, I feel like he's the king of genre filmmaking. There's not a single one of his movies that's just a straight drama. Except for Elvis, which was that made-for-TV biopic starring Kurt Russell that he made like right after Halloween, which like is one of his least interesting movies that he made, and it was a straight-to-TV movie. But like everything that he has done, from Assault on Precinct 13, which is this intense action thriller, you have Halloween, The Thing, The Prince of Darkness, In the Mouth of Madness, Vampires, all of these amazing horror films. You have Escape from New York, and to a lesser extent, Escape from L.A., which are really exciting action films. You have these crazy fantasy martial arts adventures like Big Trouble in Little China, and They Live, which is a really awesome sci-fi thriller. Mm-hmm. And he's able to just bring so much personality and elevate what people would consider like B movies. And he never once had to like take a step back and try to do a straight drama just to please people. Even something like Starman, which is his most effective, like it's a romance at the core of it and a drama, but it's about an alien and has body horror in it. So like, and Jeff Bridges, who's great. But the thing is, it's like he just really knew how. Well, knows he's still here. He just doesn't make movies anymore. Just being able to take any kind of genre film and run with it and make something out of it. And not many directors can do that. So, good for him.
Well, I mean, he took a WWF wrestler, or whatever it was back then.
It was WWF.
And
we're not afraid of you, the World Wildlife Fund.
But he took Roddy Piper, someone you wouldn't look at as, you know, top tier actor, and in my mind, he made a hit out of it. That movie was incredible, and the acting, believe it or not, was pretty damn good.
They Live was great, and he was believable. Him and Keith David beat the shit out of each other. Like, straight up, beat the shit out of each other. And you know that's because Kurt Russell wasn't available. Because if Kurt Russell was available, he 100% would have been in They Live.
It's okay that he wasn't.
Yeah, because then we got that drag him out 15-minute parking lot brawl, which I don't think would have happened if it was Kurt Russell. Because Roddy Piper brought the pro wrestling to that. And also, he's massive! Like, it's funny because if you look at him next to, like, Hulk Hogan and stuff like that, Roddy Piper wasn't that big. And then you look him next to regular human beings, and he's just, like, a massive human being.
Yep.
So, They Live is so great. That was, like, his last, I feel like, truly great movie before The Descent. And things didn't get as great anymore. But finished out the 80s strong. What's your next one?
Well, I feel like today, and I mean really starting in the 90s, you had most like horror directors needed gallons and gallons and gallons of blood to frighten people. John Carpenter has proven over and over again that he doesn't have to do that. And the most iconic one, obviously, was Halloween. And there wasn't a whole lot of blood. There wasn't any gore in it. And if you just watch interviews of the people who went to go see that movie when it first came out, they were terrified of that movie. I mean, it doesn't hold up as in, you know, like terrifying in today's standards, but it was still a movie with very little blood, zero gore, and it was still frightening because, he, like I said before, he used a score. He had an intimidating presence, even just in the shadows. And yeah, that score followed him around the whole movie, and it was perfect in the jump scares that happened, and just the presence of Michael Myers that was accompanied by the score. So
the shape lurks. Well, that's a thing because, like, even if you look at the contemporaries of Halloween, with Friday the 13th was a schlocky teen, like, camp slasher flick that really did rely upon, you know, like, people getting stabbed through the throat with stuff and you see it poking through and blood and everything. And Nightmare on Elm Street, which is very grotesque, too.
Yeah.
And, you know, pyres of blood shooting out of a bed. But the thing is, like, John Carpenter didn't want to do any of that. And he wanted to build real terror, like a sense of terror. And I think it would be very interesting to watch this for the first time in a theater. When you're not, like, I feel like things are less scary when you're sitting at home and you've seen them so many times. But, like, there's just so much impressive building of tension. And that's what Carpenter does so well, is build tension. One of the main things that is his trademark is voyeuristic camera movements. Like that opening scene in Halloween where we're the kid. with the mask on, and we're creeping around the house. It's like his student film, Captain Voyeur, was literally a dude walking around creeping on people's windows and stuff like that and seeing all the weird shit they were doing. And then a lady shoots him at the end because he peeked in the wrong window. But the thing is, it's like, that really led up to The Thing. The Thing has a lot of body horror and, like, the grotesque looking, like, alien and stuff like that. But, like, you don't, like, what's really scary about that movie is the paranoia. And, you know, camera sneaking, lurking through the halls and stuff like that in this really quiet, obscure, Antarctic facility and stuff like that. John Carpenter didn't need to do all those kinds of things because he really built tension and horror. And even watching stuff like The Prince of Darkness and In the Mouth of Madness, which is this Lovecraftian, Stephen King-esque kind of psychological horror film, which is like, there's not a whole lot of blood and guts or anything in it. Actually, it's so surreal and unnerving, that's where the scares come from. It wasn't really until like the late 90s where he started using tons of violence and like vampires and Ghosts of Mars to actually like try to get a rile out of people. But like, Halloween's iconic, and he didn't have to do anything except put Jamie Lee Curtis standing there in a house, and there's a dark doorway, and all you had to see is just a little peek of a white mask there, and just absolutely terrifying. Or her thinking that it's all over, and Michael Myers, Undertaker Kane sitting up in the background. Which they 100% stole that from Halloween.
The dead man.
Yep, just him sitting back up with the clothes hanger in his eye. Just like, that's terrifying enough. You don't need a whole lot of gore and crazy blood and stuff like that. My next point is, what amazing concepts he comes up with. Because the thing is, like, he doesn't always write his films, but he's written quite a few of them, and you know, Halloween seems like such a kind of straightforward idea at this point, but like, imagine like, what if a personification of evil escapes some kind of asylum and wreaks havoc on a small town and stuff like that? You didn't see movies like that in the 70s. Then you have things like Escape from New York, where it's just like, what if this dystopian future where New York City's a penal colony, and the president crash lands in, and you have to stand in Snake Plissken. Big Trouble in Little China is one of the weirdest freaking movies I've ever seen.
So awesome.
And it's so crazy and over the top, and They Live is fascinating and so clever and interesting with how it tackles capitalism and consumerism and our obsession with things, and doing it all through like, what if you had a pair of sunglasses that made you see the world for how it really is? You know, you look fine. You real effing ugly. Formaldehyde face. And everything in between. And even like his later films, like Ghost of Mars, what if like this group of police officers on Mars goes into a small town and everybody's been infected, and it turns into like this crazy zombie movie. And it's just like, that's a cool idea. Did it get effectively pulled off at that point in 2001? Not really, but like, you had the ideas there. And those are the cool things. And even like vampires, which it's like, it's a paid group of vampire hunters working for like the Vatican, taking out vampires and stuff. So like, there's cool ideas. Even if the films aren't strong, he always has really cool, interesting ideas. And those are the kinds of movies you remake. Not Big Trouble in Little China. So get your grubby hands off The Rock. Because he wants to remake that. He doesn't even get it. The whole entire point is Jack Burton's an idiot. And not a real hero. So like, no, Rock, you're not Jack Burton. Kurt Russell being a doofus is Jack Burton. But anyway.
Remake it with Kurt Russell.
I'm just waiting for whether it's the 11th or the 12th one for Kurt Russell to show back up in Fast and Furious. Because they mention him so many times in the new one. I'm like, he has to come back in one of these. That Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell.
And then Ethan's last point's pretty just blunt and straightforward.
He made Halloween.
So it's
no one else did.
It's, I feel like it's Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Halloween. Like, that's slasher movies. Like, if it weren't for those two movies, there would not be decades of slasher movies. And Wes Craven wouldn't be as popular. Jason Voorhees would not be a thing. Freddy versus Jason wouldn't be a thing. It's that kind of idea, and it's hard to argue because Halloween was one of the first and probably the best. Yeah. So
not easy to argue that anything's really better than that.
There's so many imitators, but John Carpenter made Halloween, and then I'm just going to add in his legacy of horror is also he made The Thing. And I don't think, like so many other films try to replicate, like they even tried to make a prequel in 2011, which apparently sucked. It's just like, there will never be another Thing. The practical effects, the tension, all of it is just like a once-in-a-lifetime kind of creation. And you know who made it? John Carpenter. So yeah, he made Halloween and The Thing. What do you all have? Nothing! Nothing! So, those are our reasons why we think that John Carpenter is an all-time great. Put in the comments why you think so too. Or try to tell us why we're wrong. Why not? But Ethan.
It's okay, you're wrong.
Before we wrap up, would you like to shamelessly plug anything for people to check out?
Dante Rowe Cosplay on Instagram.
There you go.
If you like cosplay, then it's for you. If you don't, then it's not for you.
Plain and simple. But thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.